Welcome back to the Bars and Sticks Trader channel. So today I'm going to look at another setup, the same as before, the lower high. So here's the high, here's the lower high, here's the low, and at the break of this low, I'll look to go short. Anything that moves up into this region, if it moves above here, well then I know I'm wrong and I'll have to exit with a loss. So this will be the setup short, and that's what I'll be looking for. So now I'm going to go to the live market and test it out. Okay, so here's the setup. Here's the high. Here's the lower high. This green line represents my average price. And so this zone right here, whoops, here to here, this area. So if the price comes all the way back up here and moves through that area, well then I'm wrong and I'll have to get out. So I look at this area, this distance, and I look at roughly this distance. They're about the same. So in this case it's a 1-to-1. So I'm looking for this to move down into these lows, into here. And can you remember what this is called? This area, right in here. This is called major support. Here's another topping tail. And notice the moving averages. It's moving downward. This one's beginning to move down, moving down. So all I can do now is sit and wait. And while I'm waiting, I can try to find more topping tails. So here's a topping tail. Here's this topping tail. Oh, here's one. Here's another topping tail. And those are all bearish. Now look for bottoming tails. Here's a bottoming tail. But notice, the bottoming tail was immediately erased with a topping tail. That's bearish. And then notice the move down. Now here's a tail. That's a bottoming tail, followed by a powerful move up. Now key things for me to take a look at. Here was a low, this was a higher low, and this was the prior high. So this entry here, it's not a bad entry. If I had entered long, this would have been the area of the stop. And this distance, and this distance, that would have been a pretty good trade. So far, this one's working out pretty well. And I'll look for it to move down into this area here. So it's getting close. It's already penetrated the first area. Let's see if it'll push down into here. It would be great if we can break this low. But now I start looking at the number of bars. Here's a big powerful bar. Look at that powerful bar. This one right here. Here's a second one. And here comes the third one. So as I get multiple bars down into this low, I'll look to take to reduce the risk. Now another thing I notice is I look at the distance between the current price and these moving averages. It's beginning to get extended. So I'll keep watching. There's nothing to do just yet. This could possibly form a bottoming tail. But there's nothing to do just yet. Remember, each one of these bars represents 2 minutes. And while it does this, I'll look at the chart. I'll look at the chart and see what else I can find while I'm waiting. See, I can use these moving bars to study and to practice while the trade is happening. So if I look at this bar, look at the size of that, then look at the size of this bar, they look pretty equal. So there's a little one here. Big move, another big move. And that's pretty helpful to know. Well, here it comes into these lows. See if it'll continue. So if this moves up to here, well then I'll have to get out. I'll get out right here. This little distance will cover the commissions. But I'd like to let this sit and wait, see if it actually pushes down a little further. And the other thing I'm looking for is what is the speed of this bar? The speed in which this bar declined was quite rapid. The speed in which this is moving is quite slow, so it still could be kind of weak. So what I'd like to see is even something like this. Little bars that move up, followed by a bigger bar that changes direction. And then I would see possible follow-through. I like seeing those controlled moves. Similar to this. It moves up, it moves up, it moves up, it moves up. When you start getting these big long bars after multiple moves, well then, that's kind of a sign that the move may actually be over as it moves into this area right in here. Well, it's beginning to move closer. Let's see what happens with this bar. Question is, will it close and hold up there? So that's not too bad. I'm okay with this. If I take all three of these bars together, I could actually create a single bar. Like this. This represents this move. So I'm waiting to see what happens after this bar. If this bar is formed and another bar cannot move higher, then that's a good sign that this is going to move lower past this low. So this is the main area. And look at this bar. This was a pretty powerful bullish bar. Now this next bar here will close as powerful as it currently is. That'll be a great sign. So it's got to make it through this area right in here. Let's see what happens with this bar. You just have to wait. So I'll go back and look at some of the other bars and look at the moving averages. So So here's a moving average. And from here to those moving averages, I notice the distance. It's pretty far away. Same with this. And notice the distance. The distance from those moving averages is far away. Now notice this. That bar is important. It was almost completely wiped out. This area right here, this will be very important over the next few minutes. If it can break down below this area, I could see a bigger move. And as it breaks down through this area, here it comes. I'm going to want to look to set this to break even. So here it comes, it broke through that area. Let's see if it can hold. So it'll need to continue to break down. Now this area here, this is the next area of importance. So this is major resistance if this turns back up. But I want to see it stay underneath this. This was resistance. It will become minor support. So here's this move. This is how far, so I turned this into one bar. Now if I take this distance from here to here, I could very well see the same thing from here down to here. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for another move. So that's 1 bar, 2 bar, 3 bar. I'm looking for another push down past this low. And it depends how it gets there. So if I have another bar that looks like this one right here, this big bar, then I'll look to reduce risk. But if I have a bunch of smaller bars like these, then I'll wait for a few more consecutive bars to complete. Now notice the price. 147.10. And notice this low, around 147. It tends to pause right around that whole number. Around 147, that's a level of resistance. If it can break below 147, I could see it move down to 146.80. But it needs to break through 147. So in the meantime, I continuously compare how far away is this from these moving averages? And how far away was this from the moving averages? This and this, they're pretty close. Same with this. They're all pretty close to the same distance. So in all of these other instances, it started moving back up. But here was one area. Here's 2. This right here, this is 3. Will 3 be lucky? Will it break down and drop below 147? Well, I'll have to find out. And this is where you have to be patient. It's not moving terribly fast. Just have to sit and wait. Oh, there it goes. Now it's got to hold. So it broke below 147. Now I should start looking to take a little profit and start to reduce risk. But not yet. So here comes that 146.80 area. Now notice the size of this bar. It looks like it's beginning to become extended. But I'll throw it in order. That's what this green line is right here. Throw it the order, take some, and that's it. The trade is over.